you're anything like me, you've probably seen these flippy boys everywhere, whether it be in video games like Valorant or CSGO, in movies, or on social media with other people flipping them and getting kind of crazy with them. And you've probably thought to yourself, damn, that's cool. If only I had a young, talented, attractive man to show up and show me the ropes so I can get into it. Why are you still here? Get the f*** out of here. Balisongs are a fantastic hobby to get into, whether you're just looking to improve your hand-eye coordination, have some fun, show off to your friends, whether you get into social media or you go to competition and you compete against other people. You could be getting a knife simply for display, like this one. It's not going to flip very well, but it does look very cool if you put it on a stand. They're also fantastic fidget toys. Whenever I miss my entire clip in Valorant and I die and watch the round for a minute, I sit there just doing some Balisong tricks to cool down. It's also a fantastic way to spend a shit ton of money. You've heard all of that and you're probably thinking, yeah, that sounds great, but what is a Balisong other than a slab of metal or plastic that spins? Balisongs can either be sharp if you want a live blade and serve as an actual knife, although they're not exactly legal in all places, or they can be dull like what I'm holding right now. Not sharp, not dangerous at all. Might hurt if you get your finger caught in there, but it's relatively safe. There are a few important terms that you might want to learn if you want to get into the Balisong community. For example, the bite handle and the safe handle. You pretend that this is dull, but if this were a blade, this side would be sharp and this side would be dull. I can get my finger in there, and since that's a dull side, it's not going to cut me. Therefore, this handle would be the safe handle. This handle would be the bite handle, because if I do that, then I'm now bleeding everywhere and might no longer have a finger. You've also got terms like balance, where the weight, the center of gravity of the knife, is going to lean more towards the handle or the blade. And that is going to affect the different tricks that you can perform and how well they function on each knife. Every knife is going to have a different balance point. There is also the swing of the knife, which is how much the handles swing when they're left to their own devices or when you're spinning it on your finger or whatever. You have tap, which this knife doesn't have tap, but if I grab something over here, hold it, and it's going to make a bunch of noise and rattle around when you shake it. Depending on the quality of the knife, it's going to either have a lot of tap, little tap, it depends on tolerances, how it's made. And finally, there's play. That's going to be how much the handles move relative to the blade, and that's also going to be affected by things like build quality and materials that the knife is made out of. If you want to get into Balisongs, there are three main entry levels that you can do. You can either go to the expensive side, the relatively neutral side, or the extremely risky and cheap low end. This would be an example of the high end. This is the Glider Arctic, runs for about $120. Built really well, metal construction, and is overall just a really, really good experience when it comes to flipping. On something of this price point, you're going to have high quality, you're not going to have tap, you're not going to have too much play out of the box. It's going to be durable, it's going to flip well. Only downside being, it is expensive to most people. $120 isn't exactly something to sneeze at when you're talking about a slab of metal that spins. And it could be something where you buy it and you decide, hey, this hobby isn't really something for me, and you feel like you've wasted your money. So if you feel like you are really going to like it, I do suggest this route, as it is going to get you the longest term knife This thing is amazing, and I think it's gonna hold up for a very long time. Now we have the basic entry level. This is your $60 to $70 range, which I'm representing by the Squiddy Bee. This is an entirely plastic Balisong, which you might be wondering, why would I want a plastic Balisong? There are a few advantages to it. It's going to be lighter, it's going to be easier to perform fast tricks. It's an overall easier experience. It's not going to hurt as much as a metal Balisong if you happen to hit it against your hand. And it's also not going to do much damage to itself or the environment if you do happen to drop it. These knives usually are going to get the job done. They're not going to be as good as the upper end, but they are going to be a really solid experience for the price. Even, you might think it's just plastic, but this thing actually performs very, very well. The only downside to something like a Squiddy is you're going to have a really light knife that you're not really going to be able to go up to a full metal knife if you want to have a live blade. You're going to be used to something that's 2-3 ounces, and once you move up to something that's either 4 or 5 ounces, it's going to be really hard to transition into. So you're going to want to go from this to a metal trainer rather than going straight to a live blade, especially since you can't tell the bite side from the safe side, as this is a symmetrical knife. Finally, you have the riskiest of the options. It's going to be the cheapest. This only set me back about $25. But if you're going on something like Amazon, sure, it's cheap, but you're going to have an experience similar to what VR had with the Google Cardboard a few years ago. It was cheap, but when you show Grandma VR, she's going to think that that's all it has to offer, and mobile VR kind of sucked. It wasn't very good. And a lot of the times it turned people away from investigating VR further. That could very well happen with something like this, where you end up with a knife that isn't so quality, and you think, oh, well, this is what Balisongs are, and it turns you away from the rest of them. So yes, it's cheap, and some of them can function as a good first knife for you. It is a risk that you are going to have to take, because this thing sucks. I drop it all the time. I can barely do any of the tricks that I'm capable of doing on my other knives, and it's just not good whatsoever. Whereas this knife, which my friend owns, it is small, much smaller than other knives I've used, but it actually isn't that bad. So if you go on Amazon, you're going to be dealing with a lot of lottery. Some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be bad. Like the one that I have, I barely flip, whereas this one I could see someone using as a stepping stone into getting into the hobby. And since you are only spending $20, $25 on these, you might be willing to take that risk. Funny enough, my first foray into the world of Balisongs was this thing. Now this thing, quite frankly, sucks. It's a replica of the Crimson Web from CSGO, but it weighs twice as much as any other reasonable Balisong would be. It doesn't feel very good, and it's curved, so doing a lot of tricks on it will be very difficult. And yet, I used this thing as I was in this very room and went home. It was my deciding factor to purchasing my first Balisong, the Squiddy Bee, which I still use to this day and still love. If you're less willing to take the risk of an Amazon Balisong, there is also the option of modding. I know there are a few Balisongs on there where you can mod things. You can unscrew it, take the latches off, you can lube them, you can change out some of the parts if you're that technical. It is still a gamble, but there are ways that you can make it better. I still don't highly recommend this option, as you're gonna get a much better experience from someone who knows how to tune and make Balisongs like Squid, even if it is gonna be more expensive. But if you are willing to go down that road where you want to spend less money, it is cheaper and you can mod. Still a gamble, but it is still an option. So now we answer the question in the title. Should you buy a Balisong? I think the short answer is, if you think this looks interesting to you, go for it. There's really nothing to lose. There's a bunch of price options you can go for, and I think you'll really enjoy it if you think it looks interesting whatsoever. I do want to thank my friend Telestro. The link to his YouTube channel will be in the description, and he makes much better videos than I do, so I recommend going to check him out. He made a lot of this possible, shot a lot of the shots that you've seen throughout this video, and this is actually his room. You will probably not see this if I decide to make more videos in the future. Unfortunately, I really like it. So yeah, massive shout out to him. His link will be in the description, and I thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.
What the dog doing?
Even the dog dropped it.
Yeah, for real.